Your counterpart, Chris Netto?
Yes.
Do you know him?
Yes.
He asks me what I'm making for dinner every time.
Excellent.
Us, it's scotch and cigars. So, so the dinner thing with Chris, for us, it's scotch and cigars.
Yeah.
So
That's what happens. Yeah, that's what we discuss. What happens after supper.
But I really like the edge processing that you were talking about. So instead of using audio threshold to steer or to turn on a mic for someone, it literally looked at you. And when your lips starts moving, the area of microphone is beamforming the mic toward your direction. So that's correct.
Unless you're miming the entire thing, and then you're screwing up the entire music, trying to trick AI.
So there are some other use cases. I've got a group in New York. They're putting a 27-inch screen on every floor in their office, and the screen is IT support. So you walk up, it says, I need help with my phone, my cell phone, my computer, my software. So the users on the floor feel like they're getting to the right person immediately, as opposed to, where's Larry? He's never around when you need him. And then when Larry comes over, he looks at you and goes, oh, I got to go talk to somebody, and walks away.
Yeah. Did you create a ticket? I think we hear that one pretty often here.
30 days so they can try it out. And this guy goes, oh, you have to give one of these to Mark Cuban. Here's his address. And just gives us Mark Cuban's address. Now, we all of a sudden get this random phone call that says, we need 36 55-inch boards on carts because we're going to put them inside the NBA bubble. And we all know that it was probably Cuban that said, why don't you just put DTEN boards there? It wasn't like there was a big sales thing going on. DTENs just, once you start using them, you want them everywhere.
David, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast, Behind the Rack. It's a pleasure having you on. Really excited to be talking to you about UC products. It seems to be like I'm not going to call it a fad, but it's
getting more and more popular.
Very much so. Yeah, yes. A lot more prevalent. And before we kick that off, just for the audience who may not be familiar with DTEN, can you give us kind of a brief overview in terms of who you are as a company and what you set out to solve, let's say, in the whole collaboration space?
Sure. So I guess I'll start by saying I don't know that this is a podcast for DTEN because by definition, DTEN makes all-in-one solutions for Teams rooms and Zoom rooms, and we don't need a rack. Everything is built in. Cameras, microphones, speakers, it's all built right into the screen. The screens are all touch-enabled. They're all capacitive touch screens. The idea is hang it on the wall, give it power, give it Ethernet, and you've got yourself a Zoom room or a Teams room. Where did we start? We actually started there. Well, we actually started by making interactive whiteboards. That was 10 years ago. And then we connected with Eric Yuan from Zoom, who proceeded to say, I'm getting ready to make a new version of software called Zoom Rooms. And if you do these 12 things, you will build the first all-in-one Zoom room appliance. And that's what we did. And we built the first all-in-one Zoom room appliance. That's kind of how we got here today. Since then, we obviously became aware that Microsoft was becoming and has become the number 2 player, now the number 1 player in the space. So we also build Teams rooms, but more than just building a team certified solution, we wanted to have more of an engineering relationship with Microsoft, which is where we are today. And we have built the first and only all-in-one certified Microsoft Teams room solution that is running Windows IoT. So that's what's called MTRW is the software in their world. And not only is it Teams rooms ready, but it is also Copilot ready. So when they get all their Copilot features in, we'll have all the Copilot features ready as well.
Very interesting.
And is this it's the successor of the D7X, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct. Yep. So the original model we created was called the D7. We made a second generation of that. We moved on to the D7X, if you will, which was our third generation. That's where we started with Teams. So they did Teams and Zoom. The first D7s only did Zoom. And now the D7X AI board, as it's called, is now the fourth generation in the series, and it does Zoom or Teams appropriately. Zoom is a little more closer to the vest on what it means for AI to be in the conference room at this point. The Microsoft Teams people are kind of pushing forward and telling people a lot of what's coming, so to speak. But they'll both have AI solutions.
Is it the panel or the screen you have behind you right now?
Yep, that's a 55-inch AI board behind me.
Cool.
Very nice.
Nice. That's a good intro for D10. Yeah. What about yourself, David? What's your background? How did you come to work in the UC space?
Like everybody else in this world, it was an accident. Nobody really knows that the UC space exists. Nobody even knows the AV space exists. So it's hard to find the space, but as I'm sure most people know, once you find it, you don't leave it. You can't get out. So I really started from the broadcast side. Originally in television broadcast, that moved me into the AV space. Worked for a bunch of people. Worked for a dealer. Ultimately went to work for Crestron for a long time, a couple of places, and that ultimately got me to D10.
Interesting. Before you even knew about the UC space even existed.
Right. When I was back in the late 80s, early 90s, you were doing everything via satellite to deliver stuff from one place to another, and then phone banks coming in on the other side. That was your definition of what now we call a podcast, in essence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, ISDN lines and technologies like this. Just curious, what position or what role did you play in the broadcast ecosystem? Were you a camera person, an audio guy, or?
Actually, I worked at a couple of TV stations doing all kinds of different things, audio primarily. Yes, I did some camera work. I owned a production company for a couple of years. And then the local broadcast dealer hired me to be their broadcast salesperson. That's how I got into the broadcast / AV cycle. And they were just starting with 3-gun projectors and how cool could this be? That was, there was a lot of, we can put a big screen in a conference room and light it up with 50 lumens and people will think it looks great. That's what we had at the time.
And maybe a couple of questions. Like, let's get back to the actual business you're in. What you think was the main driver? I believe I have the answer, so I always ask the question anyways, but what you think was the main driver toward where we are right now in UC? How do you think the pandemic had a role to play in it? And what's your opinion about that?
I think the pandemic was an accelerator, but the road to soft codecs was already well paved before the pandemic hit. Right? So certainly when I started, somebody built a piece of hardware that allowed it to make a call. It could grab an ISDN line or multiple ISDN lines, right? Bond them together, get video and audio to go to the other side. It was very complicated, but it was doable. It was expensive. It was complicated. It was doable. But even with that motion, go back long enough, A Tandberg system only talked to a Tandberg system. A Polycom system only talked to a Polycom system, right? So eventually there were some standards that were created so everybody could say, oh, now we can all talk to each other because we're kind of speaking the same language. Everything was still hardware built and hardware dependent, but at least there was interoperability because they had that same standard. As phones moved from a hardwired phone set to voice over IP phone systems, right? That opened the door for SIP type calling. And then the video group followed along and said, oh, we can put SIP on top of here, get our connections going. But then others came in and said, hey, we can do video calling with software, whether it be Skype, Link, Teams, right? WebEx, Zoom, GoToMeeting, Blue Jeans, everybody had their own little, right? Ring Central had their own version for a while, or still does. The concept of software being off your laptop, being the codec and making the call different than dedicated hardware built to do that. All that was underway before the pandemic really hit.
Yeah.
And the pandemic just accelerated it. There were plenty of people using WebEx, had all kinds of WebEx stuff stood up. I talked to many people who their Cisco servers fell apart during the pandemic, and they had to do Zoom calls in order to talk to each other to get it fixed. Because back then, everybody was still building on local servers. The simultaneous motion here was most of these new software providers were using cloud-based solutions. So anybody who was in the cloud could expand immediately, Zoom being the biggest one. They could take on as many million people as wanted to fire up a Zoom call, where if your organization had dedicated Cisco servers running WebEx internally, and it was only running conference rooms, let's say 100, and then you had to add 10,000 users to it, it melted down. And there was a lot of meltdown there. That created the acceleration that got us to adoption of cloud-based, software-based codecs today.
Yeah, I remember that. Everybody was on the call. Everyone was like, okay, you got to shut off all your cameras because everything is like, everything was just shutting down.
Even, before the pandemic, most people didn't turn their cameras on. Now everybody turns their cameras on. There were a lot of cultural changes that went along with it.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember I was using Zoom before the pandemic. So I knew them before they were cool. But yeah, at the time, I mean, even then, the executives or the boss were, okay, why your camera's not open? They
Right.
wanted us to have the camera open to make sure we were not like doing something else while listening to them or while having our meeting. But now it's more prevalent, except when someone's presenting something. Sometimes people turn off their camera because they don't want to disturb anybody. But in general, like everybody has its camera on, and that's the new norm. Yeah.
Correct. And I got to tell you, the next big motion that is just coming into play for everybody is starting to add whiteboarding features and annotation features into those same calls and meetings, because that's where productivity is really going to pick up. If you look at how the Zoom software works today, if you look how Teams works today, different than even 3 years ago, where you could do a whiteboard session and you'd save it as a PDF, and God only knows where it went, who could remember where, what, why, right? Now, if you're in the Zoom environment, it goes right into your Zoom chat. So everybody who was in the meeting has a copy of it. You can keep working on it after the fact. You can pre-build whiteboard sessions and bring them in. Teams does the same thing within channels and groups. So all their documents are sitting there. They're all organized. You can find them. Technically, they're in SharePoint, but anybody who is in that meeting can see it, alter it, write on it again, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where productivity really starts coming into play. And we all know, even today, most rooms, especially the smaller rooms, because that's where the real work gets done. There's still a whiteboard, right? There's still a whiteboard. There's still a easel of some kind with a notepad. People still want to write out ideas and think about it and put them up somewhere and park them and then come back to them. And the tools are really there to do that today and to keep us moving forward and do it all electronically. Most users haven't moved to realizing that those pieces are there. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see a big uptick on, I got to have a touch screen, I got to have annotation, I got to have whiteboarding, because everybody knows they need it. Now they're going to start realizing, hey, it's available and it's in the tools I already use.
I was going to say, in terms of trends, we're talking about what people are starting to discover and what they're using more and more of. Out in the marketplace, what are you seeing? You know, there's a lot of talk. We're talking about the pandemic and all that. We're talking about remote work, hybrid work, some industries now even back to office mandates. What are you actually seeing? What's the reality of what's happening in the market?
So this is interesting, and it's traditional that East Coast, West Coast do things first, and then it kind of moves to the middle of the country as it goes, right? In the US and Canada the same way, let's be honest, right? So what we saw, biggest adoption 2 years ago, New York and San Francisco Bay Area, everybody got told go back to work. And everybody said, no, the offices are done. I'm not going back to work. It's horrible. I'll come in 1 day, maybe 2 days. So large corporations spent tons of money on video walls. Boy, weren't they the greatest things ever. Rebuild the lobby, all hands meeting spaces, new cafeterias, everything you could think of, jungle gyms, everything you could think of to get people to come back to the office, right? So these big build outs, lots of technology for the AV integrator, that's for sure, right? Because they're all big signage, all those kind of things. Then you got to come back to the office. So now people have returned to the office because the office is beautiful, it's all set up. And now those same people are saying, well, I can't come 5 days a week because I can't do video calls because the conference rooms are no good. There's some webcam that you hung there just before the pandemic or just after the pandemic because nobody knew what to do. And the stuff at my house is better. So I got to be home 2 days a week because that's when I do all my calls.
Yeah.
So now we're starting to see okay, let's turn all this over. Let's redo all the phone booths that are in our spaces so people can take calls. Let's redo the small and medium conference rooms so the technology's up to speed and better than what's at everybody's home today. So they will come to the office 5 days a week. Mm. And simultaneously, as I move more towards the center of the country, in your world, the Montreals of the world, the Torontos of the world are kind of now moving over to the Ottawas of the world. And Ottawa's just getting ready to put video walls in everywhere, like Chicago's getting ready to put video walls everywhere. The center part is a little behind on how it moves, right? But Vancouver, they're starting to build small rooms, medium rooms, and get their conference rooms back up because they've already got all those key spaces done.
And to your point, those key spaces, whether they were done before the pandemic, during the pandemic, or right after, ironically, most of them required a rack and, had a lot of issues with them. And you needed someone on site to go in and troubleshoot. And all of a sudden the PTZ camera isn't following the speaker and the HDMI inputs being switched to a random input randomly. So that need for simplicity, and I think that's where DTEN comes in, is what people are asking for, right? And, I think it's no lie that the mandate for a lot of corporations or companies is get your meetings done, get them done quickly, get them done efficiently. Well, you can't do a 15-minute meeting or a 30-minute meeting if you spent 10 minutes troubleshooting because it's not working and Hugo's got to go behind the rack and start troubleshooting, right? So I think it makes perfect sense. And the trends that you're describing, we're starting to see that as well in Canada as well as in Montreal.
And it's interesting. from a user point of view, we use the pandemic as a benchmark, but before the pandemic, most rooms, when you walked in, there was some kind of controller on the table and you had to go push the button and get something to happen, right?
Yeah.
Now, with touch screens, boy, you walk into the room and there's the name of your meeting with a button that says start. You don't even have to look for a controller or figure out how to use it. And for the non-technical user, finding a controller is complicated. That in itself is confusing. A button on the screen that says start, that's it. I can just start it and go. The other thing, and my age is my age, so I fall in the old category, not the young category, right? But if you look at how people executed meetings before, as we were talking about ISDN lines, we used to all get in the room. Everybody here, are we ready? Are we ready? Okay. And then we hit the button and start the call because there were all ISDN line charges. It cost per minute to have a video call, right? And people worried about that. But the other thing that would happen is everybody would come in the room and you all sit around and have a little chit chat, maybe a pre-meeting. Okay, let's start the meeting, clunk, and we start the real meeting, right? In today's world, because everybody's got a soft codec that they're coming in remotely from their laptop or wherever, people jump into these meetings early so they can have a little side conversation before the meeting actually starts.
Yeah.
So different motion. Now, the first person that walks into the room immediately starts the meeting because their friends could already be on the other side chit-chatting without them, right? It's just a subtle different motion, but it totally changes how you look at a room and how a room functions.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to worry about, do I have a controller on the table? I don't. I walk in, I start the meeting, I sit down, and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Simplicity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that, there's nothing easier than touching the screen.
No.
I think most 2-year-olds know how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, based on your experience in terms of a timeline, where do you think we're at with UC in the space? Like, do you think do you think we're at a level where it's the industry where it's quite mature, or do you think there's still room to
improve, bring new
expand,
features,
expand on, or like, I'm even talking about on the user side, like, is there a ton of opportunity, or
the AI components that are being developed are going to be massive improvements on productivity and production and efficiency. And we're going to see it continuously. We'll see it again and again and again. And it's going to be astronomical how much more efficient meetings become. And that's one of the things that D10 is working very hard on, is when you throw that word around, you say AI and you throw AI around, right?
Yeah.
When you're using AI, is AI something that is going to be handled in the cloud, so the hardware manufacturer in the room doesn't have to deal with it? Or is it something where the components in the room need to have a higher level of engine and support to be able to process stuff locally in order to execute better? And I think the answer is really both, because if you look at some of the things, collectively we're doing. So I'll take my AI board back here. My AI board has not only a center camera, but it has 2 additional AI sensors, and I can actually 3D map the room. Well, why do I need to 3D map the room? Well, a bunch of different reasons. One of them is, if I 3D map the room, I can see everybody in the room and I can see whose lips are moving. And on the fly, I can rebuild the beamforming microphones so they're pointing towards the people who are speaking. And now you wouldn't have to have a physical microphone stuck in front of each one of you, but it would sound like you have a physical microphone in front of each one of you.
Yeah.
Right? So these are the kind of AI components. Once I have enough of a processor locally, or what my team likes to call on the edge, we have edge processing to handle stuff that's going on in the room, and then centralized AI, where, as Microsoft points out, they want it to be kind of almost an entity in the room. they kind of intend, as we're sitting here talking about nothing, a voice is going to come in and say, hey, there's 15 minutes left in this meeting and you still have 3 more agenda items. Should we move on to the next?
Pretty cool. Creepy, but pretty cool.
And
Getting bossed around by AI. Wow.
but when we start talking about corporate efficiency, whoa, that is definitely corporate efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're all sitting around here, right? And let's say we're part of a Teams chat or a Teams channel, right? We're all sitting around and somebody says, hey, when are your AI boards going to be shipping? And I go, oh, well, I don't know. Sally's not on the call today. She's got the exact date. I should be able to go, hey, Copilot, when are these AI boards shipping? And Copilot should be able to come back and say, according to the document in the Teams channel that you're a part of, Sally said they would be shipping on May 22nd. And when you start looking at those kind of motions where I can have, if you will, an assistant, Copilot is designed to be your personal assistant, but now we need an assistant in the room to help everybody all at once.
Very interesting. But
and that's more of a far end. But again, we're just scratching the surface on how efficient, how productive are we going to be?
Yeah.
But I really like the let's call the edge processing that you were talking about. So instead of using audio threshold to steer or to give to basically turn on a mic for someone, it literally look at you, and when your lip starts moving, the area of microphone is beamforming the mic toward your direction. So that's correct.
And if you get up and start walking around, I know the direction you're walking. I know where you're going.
Following you.
I know where the walls are, so I know if you're going to turn left and right when you get to the end of the table, right? So I can have that beamform right on you the whole way.
That's amazing.
Unless you're miming the entire thing, and then you're screwing up the entire meeting.
You're trying to trick AI.
I mean, the other thing that I can do, and we've done a lot of this already with the AI board, is now when I start looking for people and cutting them out and putting them in their own box, now I know there's a glass wall that's going into the hallway. I don't need to cut those people out. I don't need to include them. I can look for real people in case there are pictures on the wall. I don't cut the pictures out and put them in. All right. So there's a lot of real AI. Once I know the room, everything becomes much more proactive in the environment than reactive, and especially speaker tracking. We've always been reactive. Somebody has to move and the camera's got to chase them.
Yeah.
We now kind of know everything that's going to happen.
David, because of all these unique benefits and features, are you noticing that when a deployment is commissioned or a corporation decides to change 1, 2, 3 rooms and they've got, let's say, 8 or 10 rooms, are you noticing that standardization is becoming very important? I mean, I could speak personally where there's a couple of rooms that we have in the building that were built at different times that have different systems. I always book the same room because the latest room, or the room that has the best features, or the one that's easiest to use. So are you noticing that where standardization is also becoming a priority beyond simplicity? I mean, I think we all understand now DTEN, you've got the maximum amount of features while being one of the simplest systems to use, which is an incredible selling point. But are you noticing standardization being an absolute priority for corporations and companies?
Absolutely. And it's not exactly the way you think. We always had this approach where things needed to be standardized because, I have one guy and he only knows how to program Crestron. So not all my rooms are going to be Crestron. So you ended up with 10 Crestron rooms, right? Now we're talking about 100 rooms. And if we don't have a standard, because every small room, every medium room, they all need technology to be able to remotely communicate, collaborate. So now that I've got 100 rooms without a standard, the burden I'm putting on my support staff is tremendous. There has to be a standard. The same way every corporation buys everybody the same laptop, right? I kind of look at it the same way. The entire building will be D10, except all those big rooms, they're going to be Crestron and something else. Just like everybody in the building is getting a Lenovo, except the marketing department, they're getting Macs.
He's in marketing.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that kind of approach. We say, yes, there's got to be a standard, but we know there's flexibility to those standards. But within the same space, we need to have the same thing so we can resolve issues faster and users get the same experience in every room. That way they're not going to different places to use different technology.
Are we seeing, sorry, I have a lot of questions. I'm like,
okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you my personal experience with D10 because we currently have the SFM Roadshow that's going across Canada, and we've got a D10 product there, and we had shipped it with the rest of the product. I didn't have a chance to open it up and play with it beforehand. So when we got to our first location, I was the one personally setting up, the table with the D10 product on it. And I had no idea, like zero clue how to set it up, what I was getting myself into.
You didn't read the manual, did you?
I did not read the manual. Sorry, David. I don't
By the
read
way,
manuals.
that's basically a joke here. Nobody reads the manual on the team.
No one reads the manual, but you'll like where this is going because when I set up,
hang on, I'm going to take you even farther. There are no manuals in D10 units.
There you go.
that's where I was going. There was no manual in the box, number one.
There's a piece of paper with a QR code, and that's it.
Yeah. And number two, all I had to do was plug it in. I just needed an outlet, which I had an outlet next to the table. It was a 27-inch monitor screen. And I set it up within 5 minutes. I didn't need an external computer. I didn't have to know what I was doing beforehand. I did not read the manual, and there was no manual. Thank you, David, for not putting a manual in the box. And it was just so easy to set up. And where I'm going with this is, are we noticing that we're putting some of these products in unconventional locations or places where maybe we would have never even thought of putting, an all-in-one screen or touch screen somewhere? Are you starting to see that as well? Because I had asked another manufacturer at one point, even at home, you mentioned, some of us have even better setups at home than we do sometimes in our corporate settings or environment. I'm very, I'm a nerd. I've got my 3 screens. I've got my 4K webcam. I've got my microphone. Like I love my setup at home, but I'm always thinking like, man, it'd be crazy to have my own little like boardroom one day, or to have a display dedicated just to the video calls. Are you starting to see that where people are saying, hey, all I need is a plug and I can set up a remote video conferencing room or whatever it may be?
So we have a number of executives and celebrities who have purchased D10 55-inch screens or 75s for their house, for their home office, so they can do video calls. There's actually a big influx during the pandemic, and the pandemic didn't have anything to do with it, but one CFO, I don't even know what company he was from, he went on the Jim Cramer show, the money thing,
NBC, yep.
And he happened to have a D10, and he started annotating on the board and circling stuff for people because he was on a D10, he was on a Zoom call, and he was annotating and making notes. And we got this influx of, I need one of those. I got to get one of those, because all his friends called him and said, how did you do that? He's really kind of what spun it into this crazy thing. Actually, right at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a company that ordered 5 boards for their C-suite, and lots of C-level people put 55 in their office so they can do local conferencing. So anyway, the pandemic hits. Long story short, they asked us if we can ship them to the executives' houses. We do that. One of the executives had a question on how to use the whiteboard, and Zoom was a little busy at the time. Their phones were kind of backed up. So he called us to see if we could help. We helped them solve his whiteboarding question, whatever it was. He was so impressed, he wrote a letter to our president saying how impressed he was with the support team. President wrote him back, "Thank you very much. Would you be willing to do a case study?" He said yes. As he was doing the case study, and the guy's name is Buster Copley. As he was doing the case study, my marketing team said, "Oh yeah, we do these programs where we do a try and buy. We loan a board to somebody for 30 days so they can try it out." And this guy goes, "Oh, you have to give one of these to Mark Cuban. Here's his address." And just gives us Mark Cuban's address. Now, Buster Copley happens to own a little company called Dave & Buster's, which Cuban was a major investor in. So ultimately, we gave one to Cuban. He put it in his house. We're deeper into the pandemic. We all of a sudden get this random phone call that says, "We need 36 55-inch boards on carts because we're going to put them inside the NBA bubble." Because remember, when the NBA came back, they had a bubble where the players were on the inside and everybody else was the outside. I got pictures of LeBron James on a D10 board doing interviews with news media on the outside. And we all know that it was probably Cuban that said, "Why don't you just put D10 boards there?" It wasn't like there was a big sales thing going on. The point of this story is D10s just, once you start using them, you want them everywhere. You find other use cases for them.
Right. Yeah.
As the user, you go, "Why isn't it easy as my office? Why isn't it as easy as this?" So that's the real motion with D10. We know it's easy to use. We know anybody can use it, and users really like it because we get so many referrals from other people. And yes, there are lots of unique use cases. One of the things we strive ourselves on is, once you've configured it, once you put your Zoom license or Team license in it, when you plug a board in, it takes roughly 48 seconds to boot up, and it boots into that environment. You'll never see any preemptive screens. You don't have to get in there and push a button. It goes right into the environment you use to make a call. And that advantage is now I could put it on a cart and roll it from room to room and plug it in.
Interesting.
You could take it on a road show and go from city to city, and it's still going to fire up and run the same way.
Would you say you're getting more requests from people who are looking into the UC space and getting that technology, or are you still educating people in terms of teaching them what they don't know?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay. And it's like a 50-50, you would say, like from your experience?
Yeah, there are two things. There are plenty of people that don't really know about, if you will, D10 or even all-in-one solution.
Yeah.
And they've been hodgepodging stuff together, and it hasn't been a good experience. And they're looking for something better, but they don't know where to look or find it.
Okay.
And then there are other people, specifically more on the Zoom side than the Team side, but both, that want to take advantage of some of the other Zoom type tools that are available, like Contact Center, for example, where you can use a 27-inch screen as a virtual receptionist, as a visitor check-in station, all those kind of additional features. You can do contact center stuff, so you can, have a pool of people in the background, and somebody can walk up to it and hit a button, and it'll call somebody in the pool to get an immediate response of some kind. So there are some other use cases. I've got a group in New York. They're putting a 27-inch screen on every floor in their office, and the screen is IT support. So you walk up, it says, "I need help with my phone, my cell phone, my computer, my software." And then based on the button you push, in the background, it does a Zoom call to that expert. So the users on the floor feel like they're getting to the right person immediately, as opposed to, "Where's Larry? He's never around when you need him." And then when Larry comes over, he looks at you and goes, "Oh, I got to go talk to somebody," and walks away. Yeah. Right? Because that was what IT was like before.
Yeah. Did you create a ticket? Yeah. I think we hear that one pretty often here. So by pressing that button, you create the ticket.
Yeah. Right. So lots of different kind of use cases there, certainly outside of the conference room as you think of it. But the opportunities are there. There's certainly wayfinding, workplace reservations, hot desking, all those kind of things are now also part of those solutions.
And circling back in that same kind of topic, for integrators and resellers that are, let's call new in the UC space, what would be one of the door opening conversation or questions they should start with to propose DTEN products and or get the end user in the aware that there's some UC solutions that can help him to achieve his meetings and or his communication between his offices and his customers?
Oh, so what I like to tell everybody is start with, as everybody calls it, the low-hanging fruit, right? When you go into somebody's office and you're going to talk about video production or building out the big conference room, whatever it is, right? Whether you're seated in a small room with them or you walk by a small room, and the magic trick is if you see one of those old Polycom Starfish phones on the table, they need a technology upgrade quick. And just stop right there and say, oh yeah, by the way, I know we're talking about this big project, but these rooms have to be upgraded. You need to do better for your customers in these spaces. They need video support, right? Let's talk about that next. And as an integrator, now you get the big job, as well as once you're doing the big job, to go in and hang 50 boards in little conference rooms. That's just cash money, baby, right? To go to a customer and install one D10 board might not be the most profitable. But as long as you're doing another big job and you've got 50, 60 rooms rolling behind it, let's go, or even 5, right? Take it and go with it. That's where the start is. And yes, they'll have to do a POC, they'll have to do 1 or 2. But again, once they get going, people start using them. They come from other floors because it's easier to use. That's where the user really starts seeing the demand.
Well, I think also,
and I also don't. I know there are a lot of challenges, but I don't see a lot of IT teams using a lot of annotation and whiteboarding like their users do, like the engineering group does, or like the marketing group does. And sometimes it's hard for the IT purchasing manager to really understand what their people do in the rooms or what they need.
Well, that's what I was about to say, David, is we often talk about how the AV world and the IT world needs to do a group hug and just communicate more and make sure that everyone's on the same base. I feel like with D10, there's a lot of obstacles that are removed. The infrastructure needed is a lot simpler. We're joking about the rack, but I mean, you don't need any of that. You need a mount on a wall, you need power, and you need an Ethernet port, and that's pretty much it. So I think already that conversation becomes a lot easier to have, and you're breaking down a lot more barriers due to the simplicity, again, like we're talking about with the product. And to your point, different departments within a single building are utilizing different features very differently. And I think that's where an all-encompassing product that has multiple benefits, but that are applicable to different departments, that's where the product is going to start to shine, because then you're not finding these niche solutions for specific departments. You're deploying a solution that has multiple benefits that are available for the different departments, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense to what you were saying about the IT purchaser and all that. It's a lot simpler.
And I also think we as AV professionals need to realize when we move into the UC space, we can't control everything. We have to rely on others. If I built a hardware connected room, I do it all. Other than the phone company giving me a ISDN line, I kind of do it all, right?
Right.
In the UC space, if I want to have the whiteboard working or not working in the room, I need a Teams admin to turn that on in the background. And that's not going to be me, the AV guy. Nobody's letting me, the AV guy, into their Office 365 portal and adjusting everything. We have to realize, hey, we've talked to the customers. Here are the feature sets they want, and at least give them the basics of this is what you should turn on for these rooms, so the users can have what they're looking for. Because for the guy the person that's deploying Office 365, for example, they got a lot of other stuff on their mind, and what happens in the conference room is probably not high priority.
Yeah.
So you can certainly be an advocate as an AV person. You can be the advocate for the people using the room, but it's not going to be you that's going to build it all out.
That's very well said.
Yeah. David, with so much going on in the UC space, and anybody who doesn't know DTEN as a brand yet, what is that 10 or 15 second elevator pitch you have for them for? And I would gear more towards somebody who's already maybe shopping in the UC space, less than somebody who doesn't know what they don't know, but somebody who's like shopping in that space. What is that sales pitch, if you have any, or any recommendation?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, we build all-in-one solutions for Zoom rooms and Teams rooms, and that's the key. The idea is to make everybody as efficient and productive as possible inside their meeting room or outside their meeting room. As a result, everything's built in: camera, microphone, speakers, touch, and it's a really fast touch-enabled screen, so you can get true whiteboarding as you're looking at what you're looking for, because it just makes you more efficient when you can have a room that you can just walk right into, start a meeting on time, and go do your next productive steps. And the technology kind of fades away into the background for you. That's ultimately our goal.
Okay.
I mean, it's disappointing that everybody in the world does not know who DTEN is, but I think part of our goal is most users shouldn't know who DTEN is, because it should just work for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than, seeing our logo on the screen, there shouldn't be much of a register. I never want to hear, oh yeah, we always use DTEN, because then that's always a negative response to that kind of stuff.
He's right, though. He's absolutely right.
I mean, a transparent technology is the best technology.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's I'm the geek. We're all geeks, but I'm the geekest.
The geekiest.
The geekiest, yes.
Hugo takes the crown for that one.
Yeah.
We'll give it to him.
Can you talk a little bit about your microphone array? Because I had the chance to try it. I had the chance to dismantle it and look at it. Like, I know there's a bunch of microphone over the screen, and I believe you did a YouTube video, right? That you were walking around the room. That's you. Okay. Very nice video. Yep. I think we should put the link in our in the podcast. Yeah, we're going to put the link right there. Yeah.
There you go. Right.
Can you talk?
It's on our YouTube channel corporately. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the technology of the microphone, which is it's basically it's stunning, because I remember in the YouTube video that's going to be linked above here soon. You were literally walking around your room, and like you were as far as I think maybe 25, 30 feet away from the...
25, 30 feet away, yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that technology? Because at the core, I'm an audio guy, and I like to hear about microphones. We had a couple of podcasts here just talking about microphones. So,
yeah. We use a 15 microphone array. It's a complete beamforming microphone. So what we're doing is, as part of the beamform, you technically analyze all the sound that comes in, and then you look for and find the enhanced sound. We specifically look for specifically human voice frequencies. That's where we start and say, oh, that's really a person. Let's hone in on that. Then we amplify that portion, and then tone down the other pieces that go with it. But the second part of it is, and we spend a lot of time on this, and remember, it's all digital these days, even though I'm kind of using analog definitions for you. The other thing that we work pretty hard on is different people are in different places in the room. So all of a sudden I have one person that's sitting, 3 feet from the board, and I have another person that's sitting 10 feet from the board. And leave the AI board out of it because it knows. But the current generation V7X there is no camera. It doesn't know where you are in the room. The beamform doesn't know where you are in the room, but it picks everybody up. Then the next thing it does is it balances everybody so the volume is the same no matter where you are. The other thing we run into, and we put a lot of work into this, some people pace when they're in a room. They're walking around. They like to walk around. It is an interactive whiteboard. Sometimes people walk up to the whiteboard and want to write on it. Now they're really close to the microphones. Of course, somebody asks a question, they turn around. Now they're facing the other way. So we're prepared for all that to happen. And internally, we're adjusting everything in terms of gain and support structure. So everybody's kind of even across the board is the idea.
Wow.
Thanks.
I was really impressed with the side cameras as well.
Yeah.
That was a cool feature that, and it's the littlest things like David was saying about, even all the things that they're thinking about, like turning around and their backs to the microphones. Those side cameras is another thing that I was really impressed with, which you don't normally think about when you're in front of the whiteboard. How do people see you on the far end?
Yeah, it's true, because if you're walking up to the screen and you're writing and you're blocking, let's say, the front camera, that's where I guess a wide field of view from the side camera comes in and is able to get you actually writing. Is that where those cameras come in?
Yeah, so you can see the side cameras. They're up here on the corners. And there are 2 cameras on each side.
Yeah.
One camera is a short throw, so it does 1 to 5 meters. And then the second camera is a longer throw, and it does 5 meters and greater. And they're designed for both Zoom and Teams. The software has different names for them. But the concept is the same. And that is when you get a bunch of people around on the table, as a remote participant, I want to be able to see everybody's face, and I want to see their facial expressions, even if they're not speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So the software tells us we have to go find people. We have to look for people's heads and shoulders and cut them out and put them in their own box so all the remote people can see them, right? That's step 1. We created ViewPro cameras, so those ViewPro cameras optically have a smaller footprint. So I get much higher resolution when I start cutting people out. Center camera is going to be in the wide shot to see the whole room. Somebody 20, 30 feet away, it's 4K camera, but there still aren't a lot of pixels left when I go that far and try and cut somebody out. So longer distances, I can definitely pick up people better. The other thing that happens is my center camera is either 120 degree view or a 95 degree field of view. When I put on the View Pro cameras, they can get up to 160 degree field of view. So if somebody does walk up to the whiteboard, that short throw camera can still get their face, even though they're facing away from everybody in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's a high shot.
Yeah, they're dual purpose. They basically enhance the resolution of the whole plane. And also, if you're closer to the board, they can get your face like while you're drawing on it. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Right.
Very cool.
Right.
Very cool.
The smart people, if you will, when we were only building 10 video conference rooms in a building, the smart people just said it is what it is. Now that we have hundreds, the smart people have gotten involved and said, whoa. More than half the conversation is nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
So speaker tracking cameras make no sense because I need to see everybody's response. And that's why Zoom and Teams both have the ability to force us to cut people out and put them in their own box so you can see them the whole time, right? Yeah, your sales manager can be standing up there giving the best sales pitch he's ever given in his life. But, the CEO is sitting in the corner going, and if you can't see them and you're a remote participant, you're kind of out of the conversation.
Yeah. No, it's true. I had a bit of a question outside the UC space because while you were talking about the 27-inch, have you guys explored signage at all? Like especially on the virtual assistant side, virtual receptionist, I guess, or
yeah. So the answer is on the Zoom platform, digital signage is built in.
Okay.
You can use either somebody else's digital signage feed, or you can build your own digital signage within the Zoom platform. The Microsoft platform doesn't do that today. They rely on third-party type software to do those things, including virtual receptionists, wayfinding, etc. Probably the number one player in that space is somebody called AppSpace.
Yeah.
So our D7X27 runs AppSpace as well.
Okay.
And we're talking to several others, JLL, etc., all the other signage, wayfinding type providers that are out there.
Okay. And you can use your bigger panels too, and maybe even in a portrait, or is it all landscape, or basically reserved on the 27?
It's all landscape, but we do have a 55-inch panel. We call it the onboard. It has no camera or microphone stack on it.
Okay.
But it's just a touch-enabled screen. Again, running, whatever it needs to run for wayfinding, mapping, digital signage, those kind of things. It can also be used as a companion whiteboard in the Zoom environment.
Okay. And on the 27, if let's say you're doing a signage as a virtual receptionist, and they want to call a cab, let's say, and they're getting sponsored by a cab company local, and they're getting a kickback, whatever, is that using Zoom to call out, or is that like a SIP thing that they have to connect to?
It'll be a Zoom call to do that.
Oh, okay. So Zoom can take care of all of that.
Zoom can call landlines, right? Am I correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Cool. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Just had one last question for you, David.
What are you having for dinner? No, I'm kidding. Just sorry. It was too easy.
What are you having for a drink after dinner?
True that. Good job.
So I can certainly answer the second question, which is I will be having red wine after dinner.
Okay, good.
There you go.
Because I have red wine with dinner and after dinner. I know that much.
Very nice.
We're on the same team, by the way.
Yeah, I was just going to say Hugo's aligned with you. No, but what do you wish more integrators just got about the UC market? Is there anything that you'd want them to know more about, especially on the AV space, them pushing that or educating customers? Is there anything particularly that you'd want them to know about, that they should be spreading the gospel?
Yeah, I think the UC market is a huge opportunity for the traditional AV integrator, because the traditional AV integrator is certainly more focused on the customer than maybe some of these IT integrators that come along. IT integrators are more about moving boxes, getting them in, getting them out, and away you go. AV is certainly more focused on the customer, what their experience is. It's a prime motion for them to step into that space and take it over, right? Which is why in my head, the starfish sitting on the table or the TV hanging on the wall with the webcam that's hanging halfway down off by the wire is a perfect example of somebody who didn't really care about these rooms, and AV people certainly care about the people using them.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I never even thought of it, but you're right. IT guys are more, and I don't want to generalize on IT, but from my experience, it's been more, they have to conform to a certain type of technology or whatever, and they kind of put the UX experience, like the user experience, in the back seat, whereas the AV guys are more on AV experience, because if the AV experience is crap, nobody's going to buy the system or the solution, right? So that is, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, but the other point of it is, I know AV seems like it's very complicated. We do a ton of different things, everything from video walls and stadiums to live concerts, etc., to boardrooms. But at the same time, if you look at what an IT person has to deal with, everything from phones, laptops, security, software, there are just so many different components that fall under the IT realm. Yeah. It's hard to become an expert in any one of them. Mm-hmm. And here we are as the AV persons. We are the experts in AV. We might as well just bring that right into UC and help them out.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Well said.
Well said. Yeah.
David, thank you for your time today and for presenting D10 and
thank you,
codecs, and it was a great conversation. And whenever you want to come back on the show, it'll be our pleasure to have you, and hopefully one day in person too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. If ever you're in, come into the studio.
Yeah, that'd be fun, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, David.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, David.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'll be your love, I'll be your sunshine, I'll be your love, I'll be your sunshine.